Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Speaker of Federal Houses of Representatives, members of the National Assembly here present, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, honorable ministers from the various countries, and ministers from our own country, Nigeria. Without wasting too much time on protocol, I would say I beg to stand on the existing protocols. Everybody is welcome. Well, this is an occasion for sober reflection, especially for us in Africa. And of course, the global developments in weather is threatening the very existence of humanity. And it does appear in some areas, these things are not taken very seriously. And of course, some of us are personally excited that the International Committee, including of course the United Nations, are taking the exercise very seriously. For us here in sub-Saharan Africa, including of course Central Africa, the challenge is very enormous. And of course, we have to appreciate the collective efforts of the International Committee as a bloc to address this challenge. My keynote address is focused on the theme, Fostering Sustainable Development Partnership in Northern Nigeria, Opportunities for Regional Growth and Climate Resilience. I'm happy that this topic was given to me, and for some of us who have had some elementary geography, we know the climate belts in the northern part of the country. We have part of the Sahel savanna, we have the Sudan savanna, and of course, we have the Guinea savanna. So we've had these belts for a very long time. As we were growing up, we saw how the climate continued changing until when we started hearing concepts like desert encroachment from the northern part of the country, because it's what affects Nigeria, and of course, it's something that's affecting the entire sub-Saharan Africa. And later on, we started hearing concepts like global warming. And what did that translate to? The eventual, effect of the global warming probably is the increased level of the sea, because more water is being pumped into the oceans, the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific, the Indian, etc., etc. And of course, we had other challenges like pollution and greenhouse gases that have been affecting climate worldwide, and northern Nigeria is not insulated. So this particular challenge is a very, very serious, because what affects Nigeria as far as climate change is concerned is affecting every country. So I must say, distinguished guests and the esteemed organizers, regional leaders, and all stakeholders present. It is with profound gratitude and humility that I stand before you today as a keynote speaker for this prestigious Eco-Hero Summit and Award. I deeply appreciate the organizers for deeming me worthy to share the insights on such a critical topic at this iconic venue, the Banquet Hall of the Presidential Villa, Aso Rock, Abuja. I am especially honored to address this summit, which brings together individuals and institutions committed to advancing climate resilience and sustainable development. I also wish to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the leadership of the 19 northern governors and states of Nigeria. Over the years, your collective efforts and initiatives towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, as SDGs, have not gone unnoticed. From targeted climate adaptation projects to investments in renewable energy, agriculture, water resource management, the side taken by governments in those regions reflect a deep commitment to ensuring a sustainable and prosperous future for millions of citizens. Progress so far and efforts to curb climate change. We have the afforestation program. And we know this program started way back in the 60s, where the government of northern Nigeria embarked on massive afforestation. And up till today, these shelter belts, we still see them as we fly through Niger, coming into the northern part of the country. As we enter Kano State, from the air, you will start noticing those particular shelter belts. And they still stand, and apparently the ones that came after them, we see them growing. The Kano State launched the Kano Green Wall Project, planting millions of trees to create a buffer against desert encroachment. Similarly, states like Katsina and Jigawa have initiated large-scale tree planting campaigns to rehabilitate degraded lands. I must say, from the reports that we gathered over the years, the desert is encroaching into Nigeria almost at the rate of 3 to 5 kilometers every year. And that has been on probably for the past 20 years. So the rate at which desert is encroaching Nigeria is alarming. And probably it is not only the problem of Nigeria, problem of Sub-Saharan Africa, and in fact, it's a global problem, because what affects Sub-Saharan Africa definitely affects the rest of the world. So we can see the efforts by governments, but I know in the past, the International Committee have been very much interested. I remember the European Union were very present in the 90s. And they had their headquarters in Kano, afforestation program, and of course, they were doing wonderfully well in partnership with Nigeria. But something happened during the regime of Abacha. They said this is military government, and therefore they exited. And when the PTF came in with our former President Buhari in charge, we had expected that that program would have been driven and sustained, because the program, the EU reforestation program, was a wonderful thing. So I hope they will kindly remember to come and give all the support that they used to, now that we have witnessed almost like over 3 decades of sustained democracy. Then, secondly, we have, apart from the afforestation program, renewable and promotion of renewable energy. Recognizing the abundance of sunlight in the region, states like Sokoto, Kaduna, have invested heavily in solar projects. The solar plants in Kaduna, a flagship initiative, provides clean energy to thousands of households while reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Meanwhile, the northern part of the country, as we are growing up, was really forested. In some part, even the Sudan, part of the Guinea Savannah, at least fairly forested. I can remember reading a book written by a British way back in the 30s. In that book, he did mention that the rate at which trees are being, cut, the likelihood is that the northern part of the country will come up with a challenge. And that challenge will be, would affect seriously the quality of their soils, and of course, even the microclimate because of the cutting down of trees. That the governments, the colonial government then had to take steps to initiate some tree planting campaigns and so on and so forth. So we can see that efforts started since the colonial time, and after independence, we could see the regional governments doing what they could as far as afforestation programs were concerned. And of course, as we also noticed, there had been a lot of, population growth, exponential growth, you can say, especially in the northern part of the country because of the culture. And of course, with more people without alternative source of heating, you should expect that more trees will be cut. And eventually, the challenges, exposing the soils to all sorts of challenges like erosion and so on and so forth, are yet things that came after as we saw the population growing. But in the time being, I think efforts have been made, and it is continuous. The water resource management. States like Borno and Yobe have focused on reviving water bodies and improving irrigation systems. For instance, the Handeja Unguru water wetlands has been instrumental to conserving one of the most significant wetland ecosystems in Nigeria, providing sustainable water resources for agriculture and biodiversity. I think the issue of these Guru wetlands, for the environmentalists, I think it has been a much discussed issue. We are aware that the Guru wetlands have been silting. I remember in the past years when the late Queen used to visit that environment because birds from all over the world, particularly from Europe, come to hibernate. And it was a very interesting thing to watch, because they flew all the way from Europe, especially during this season of winter, and it became, a tourist attraction. But that is no longer, because the Guru wetlands have silted. In fact, when the Guru wetlands were really the wetlands, you just bend down and catch fish all over the place, but that has gone. And efforts are being made to dredge the Guru wetlands by the state governments and the federal government. And since this is an international issue, I think international donor agencies are welcome to give support, because it's not only for Nigeria, but it's for international community. And we can see also dredging of the river Yobe. It makes a lot of sense to dredge the river, because it will ease the flow of rainwater from the 3-4 rivers that serve as feeders that into Yobe River, that empties into Lake Chad, the famous Lake Chad that we have seen receding from 25,000 square kilometers to now about just 5,000. That is yet another challenge. Now, I'm very aware that the Lectern Commission, consisting of about 4 countries, Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon, they have the Lake Chad Basin Commission, and efforts have been made a number of times, and are still they are ongoing, to recharge the Lake Chad from Congo River. Because we are aware the Congolese have rain almost throughout the year, and they had no objection, from what we understand, in diverting the course to recharge the Lake Chad. And we are very much aware this is not an easy project, because it affects the entire microclimate of the 4 countries, and particularly the northeast region, as we have it, as in Borno, Yobe, Bauchi, parts of Gombe, and even Adamawa states. If that Lake Chad was what it was before, and if it gets recharged, I believe that the entire climate belt will change. And even the challenges that we have there as Boko Haram, because there will be sufficient water to grow the agricultural projects that will be available. And I believe almost everybody in the Northeast, with the existence of Lake Chad, there will be peace. So we hope that the international community will be interested in this project and give support and lend support and encourage the Lake Chad Basic Commission with technology that can make it possible for us at the shortest possible time recharge the Lake Chad. So the governors are also involved in the climate smart agriculture. Ministries have introduced climate resilience farming techniques such as drought-resistant crops and improved irrigation methods. Bauchi State's collaboration with the international organizations to train farmers on sustainable practice is a noteworthy example. Strengthening early warning systems. To address the increasing frequency of floods and droughts, states like Niger and Kebbi have invested in early warning systems to help communities prepare and respond effectively to extreme weather conditions. So really, the Kebbi State and Niger State, they are doing extensive work or intensive work in these areas. The states also engage in regional and global climate action platforms. Northern states have also been proactive in aligning with their policies with international frameworks like the Paris Agreement. The Northern Governors Forum have prioritized climate change discussions, seeking partnership and funding for green initiatives. We are very much aware the greenhouse gases, the affluents from industrial factories in Europe and other parts of the world that are industrialized certainly have contributed tremendously to the climate change effects. And of course, we can see that efforts are being made from Europe, Americas, even China that had recently joined the industrial nations. And we are seeing now India coming up and growing at a very alarming rate, and several others. But we remain here as victims of the Industrial Revolution or the fallout of maturing industries who emit a lot of gases that are a threat to the survival of humanity, not only human beings, but even plants. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while this expansion reflects commendable progress, there is still much to be done to fully address the multifaceted challenges posed by climate change in northern Nigeria. The climate changes in northern Nigeria and its challenges. Despite all these efforts, the region continues to face significant challenges, and of course, number one challenge, of course, I earlier mentioned is desertification and land degradation. Large swaths of arable land in northern states are being lost to desert encroachment, making it harder for farmers to sustain their livelihood. I've mentioned that earlier, and of course, it's a very serious issue, given the rate at which the desert encroaches Nigeria. If it is not checked through afforestation programs, like the one we are witnessing the state governments doing, I don't think that is enough. You can take note of my earlier mentioning of the contribution of European Union to the project. And it can be exciting because this is a global issue. It's what affects the entire world. As Nigeria, the northern part of the country, goes down, sadly it goes down with the rest of the world. So efforts must be made to check the desert encroachment, and the state governments are doing their best. And of course, I've mentioned the drying up of our rivers, silting of our rivers. We have so many rivers in northern Nigeria, crisscrossing northern Nigeria. And of course, these rivers, they continued emptying what they had in their bellies into the Atlantic Ocean through River Niger and River Benue. For those of us who know elementary geography, we know most of the rivers. There are so many rivers that feed the River Benue. There are so many rivers that feed the River Niger. And all of them, the confluence in Lokoja. And from Lokoja, the waters empty into the Atlantic Ocean. And that has been the trend, year in, year out, year in, year out. And I've not seen any effort on our own part to dredge these rivers so that they can, all of them, we can navigate them. And also the tributaries, we desil them, dredge them to make them also navigable. That is by providing transportation means, and at the same time increasing our fisheries stock. But all these things we have not done. And now the rivers have silted. And climate change, we are getting lesser water. So it is something that the governments are taking it seriously. And I think, given that we have resource constraint, I think donor agencies can do well to lend support for this very, very lofty program. So these trends have threatened also food security. Like I mentioned earlier, the exponential population growth, and particularly in the northern part of the country, has challenged our food reserves, because more mouths now are growing to feed on the existing amount of food that we produce. And you can appreciate that still rain-fed agriculture has formed the major source of growing food in our country. And with the exponential growth in population, and of course, the absence of rivers and dams and lakes where we draw water to irrigate crops, I think is absolutely necessary now. And that will be part of our food security strategy. So as the states are moving on to do that, I think, inshallah, we will get there. And the next point I wanted to make on the water scarcity is what I have tried to, draw from the example of our inability to dredge our rivers, and of course, including our lakes and other, main rivers like the River Benue and the River Niger. So, and that would have enhanced and improved, communication, especially water communication. So, the rising temperatures The rising temperatures and unpredictable rainfall patterns have resulted in droughts, floods, and heat waves. We have never had it so hard in recent years. The droughts have been very challenging. Sometimes, Nigeria was such a blessed country that I think it's one of the very few countries on earth that can close their borders and feed themselves. We may not need the rest of the world. But today, the challenges are becoming more and more. That advantage the Almighty God has given us is gradually, slipping out of our hands. And I believe with what our governors are doing and what the international community can contribute, I think we are going to surmount what we are experiencing. You can see how floods have been, ravaging, most of our southern part of the country. And the fear is this: as the glaciers melt from the North Pole and they feed into the Atlantic Ocean, the threat to our coastal states is there. We have to be serious. If the desert is encroaching us faster, and the threat of having the ocean eating up our lands, we are not recovering land from the sea, like we have seen in geography, where especially the Netherlands have done wonderfully in recovering a lot of land from the sea. We are not doing that. In fact, more like we have then a threat of the sea from the south, and then also a threat of desertification from the north. And therefore, our land will eventually, if we are not very careful, with the global warming, if we are not very careful, God forbid, it will consume our southern states, especially the coastal states. And therefore, we'll have an increased pressure into the middle belt. And from the north too, an increasing pressure, because as desertification eats our land, there will be a very serious convergence in the middle belt. It will be extremely overpopulated. So God forbid, as our governments are doing their best, and the federal government, Siwaju's government is doing also his best to ensure that these challenges have been, be removed. And of course, we pray that we continue investing so that we can protect our land, secure our borders from the encroachment, and also secure our land from being harassed by the sea. So we have also the issue of conflict of resources. Climate-induced resources, induced resources scarcity has intensified conflict, particularly between the farmers and the herders, as both groups struggle to access dwindling land and water resources. This is a reality. The conflict that we are seeing between farmers and herders today, this is responsible, primarily responsible. The census of Nigeria in 1966, according to records, is 60 million. If Nigerians were 60 million in the 60s, with this massive landmass, you can better imagine of Nigeria that is over 200 million today, inhabiting the same land that the 60 million people were inheriting, were inhabiting. So because of competition, because we are aware from the history, even during the colonial period and immediately thereafter independence, there were grazing reserves that are gazetted by law, and they are all over the northern states. And they established cattle routes from Sokoto to Ilorin. And the cattle route from Ilorin to Lagos, for those that pushed the cattle on foot to sell in Lagos, was 100 meters setback to the right on the highway, 100 meters setback to the left of the highway, up to where you reach Lagos. Nobody dare, plant anything there or establish a business on the cattle routes. So, but today, I'm assuring you, they no longer exist. The same thing from Maiduguri, that I'm very conversant with because I come from the northeast. Through Bauchi State, Yobe State, through Plateau State, this very place, Abuja, was a grazing area. When I came here as branch manager of Savannah Bank, 1987, very young boy, the entire environment were cattle. We only had area 1, section 1, area 1, section 2, area 3, area 11, and that was Abuja. All the remaining inhabited by cattle, because they come from the north to do their dry season here and go back. But with the city growing, they have to go down south. Some of them return north, but most of them went down south. So you can see. And the cattle route from Maiduguri ended up in Oturpo. From Oturpo up to Calabar, the same thing as you have in the southwest, where you have the cattle route on the highway, 50 meters setback on your left, 100 meters to your right, 100 of the highway up to Port Harcourt. So you can see that the genesis of this so-called herders-farmers conflict is competition for land. And this is, of course, as a result of the desertifications. So we are really challenged. And we know that this has posed a lot of insecurity for us. And with the insecurity, of course, some of the solutions that we want to proffer for addressing the desert encroachment, I mean, it might be difficult because, after all, how can you go into a very huge environment where ordinarily, if you went to farming, there will be crisis, and now you are talking about planting trees. So we must have security as we address the climate change and also the effects of desertification in our own part of the country, that's the northern part of the country. So the other aspect is migration and urbanization pressures. As rural communities face the harsh realities of climate change, many people are forced to migrate to urban centers. This is a major challenge. If the farmlands in the rural areas, and if the rainfalls have become erratic that you cannot survive on your subsistence farm, you farm only to feed, not to sell, to pay school fees or to your children, or to buy clothes, or to travel to seek health, medication. So what do? They migrate to the urban centers. So this has added and fueled more problem and forced many to migrate. And did, like I said earlier, additional pressure on the already overburdened cities of our country. So these challenges, while formidable, present us with unique opportunities to foster regional collaboration and innovation. So this issue, we are seeing it as not serious, not serious, not serious. It is high time we take things very seriously. Very seriously, very seriously. It's no longer time to gather like this and talk shop and come out with a communique. So this time around, if you come with communique, we have to come out with actionable, with timelines. This is where we want to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, in 1 year. And that will be what we will use as Africans, as Sub-Saharan Africa, to make the difference. So as long as we gather only to talk, and after we take tea and go away, we forget about what we have decided. So I'm appealing to each and every party of very, very influential participants that we see here today to take back this issue, home and think over it. Let's take our issues very seriously. Let's address our problems immediately with action, and let us give our time to address the problem. So sustainable development by its very nature is a collective journey, just like I was saying. No single entity, be it government, private sector, civil society, can address the multifaceted issues of climate change alone. Regional leaders must leverage collaborative opportunities to forge partnerships that not only transcends borders, but to build resilience against diverse impacts of the climate change. For northern Nigeria, these partnerships must be anchored in renewable energy innovations. Northern Nigeria has immense solar potentials which can be harnessed through regional collaboration and private investment. Initiatives like community solar farms and simultaneous address poverty and reduce carbon emission. Then agricultural transformation. Agriculture remains the backbone of the region's economy. By adopting the climate smart agricultural practices and promoting collaborative farming system, regional leaders can ensure food security and empower our local communities. And like I earlier said, we have these challenges, but what do we need? Because we are talking about industrialization, and we are talking about many, many other things that need inflow of foreign capital. So the main issue that we are challenged with is security, because they say capital is a coward, it doesn't move into an environment where there is insecurity. So even to address the issue of the climate change, like I earlier said, you can't go and plant trees where there is insecurity. And the same thing with the renewable energy. You have to secure. So security is tied to the challenge of solving the problems of. I notice my friend is moving closer to me, probably to signal that either I'm becoming boring or I should finish what I'm just about to wrap up. In fact, yes, so we talk about education as part of the challenge that we have in addressing, the challenges that we are faced with, water resource management and so on and so forth, and also education and so on and so forth. For those in northern part of Nigeria, we should take note of one thing, that we have about 450 tribes put together. In my state, Bauchi, they say Hausa Fulani, Hausa Fulani. There is nothing like Hausa Fulani. Hausa is a language. Any person who calls himself a Hausa man, let him go and trace his roots. He must trace it to another tribe. So I have 55 tribes. We had 55 tribes in Bauchi. So there must be unity. If the tribes don't unite, security cannot be achieved. And those that have been unfortunately, drift into fanaticism of religion. After all, you are the only one in your grave. You are not going to start generating religious crisis when you are in the grave. And you should know that God did not consult you or your parents to make you either Christians or Muslims. And this insecurity is threatening the very existence of northern Nigeria, including, of course, the climate change. Because we cannot challenge the climate change without securing ourselves. We are brothers keepers. We are growing in the north as young men. We never knew what is going on like this, where a brother will challenge a brother because this man is a Christian, this man is a Muslim. You didn't sign a contract to make you a Muslim with God. You didn't sign a contract to make you a Muslim. Happen to find yourself. And these books of faith, the Bible and the Quran, are real. And they are talking about one God. So I cannot see any area of conflict as a result of that. After all, our partners in the southern part of the country, especially even the southwest, they had Islam before the north, from the history books that we read. Lagos had Islam for about 300 years. Kanem Borno in the north that has, Islam, had it for 1,200. Sokoto Caliphate is just about 200 and something years of Islam. So why is the conflict? We have to take note and make sure that we use religion, and these are tribal diversities, to bring us together to address climate change. I thank you most sincerely, and God bless you all.